Hi everybody. We are meeting once again for a short discussion on a poem. This time we are discussing an African poem. The poet is Gabrial Okara. The poem we are discussing is his poem Piano and Drums. This is one of the famous poems written by this author. Also, he has another poem which is very often included in poetry anthologies, that is, You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed. We are not going to discuss that poem, but we are going to discuss this poem, Piano and Drums. Let me share the screen and begin the discussion. Hope you can see the screen now. Piano and Drums by Gabrial Okara. Before we go into the discussion, I would like to have one or two words about the poet Gabrial Okara. Just like many other English medium writers outside Britain and America, Gabriel Okara also was born in the time where there was a colonial rule in his country, Nigeria. And he studied under colonial rule. Of course, he worked also for some time before 1949. And while he was studying, he began writing poetry, fiction, and also plays for broadcasting. He is also a famous journalist because he learned journalism in Northwestern University. As a result, his contribution for newspapers, radio broadcasting is very much popular in Africa. However, his poem Piano and Drums is famous in literary circles as it is one of the poems which has very high value of symbolism. Let us turn towards the poem and continue our discussion. Piano and Drums. Let me read this stanza and then continue the discussion. Then at break of day, at a riverside, I hear the jungle drums telegraphing, the mystic rhythm, urgent roar, like bleeding flesh, speaking of primal youth and the beginning. I see the panther ready to pounce, the leopard snarling about to leap, and the hunters crouch with spears poised. This is a very clear image of early Nigerian tribes. His childhood, he refers to a kind of lifestyle he experienced as a child. And he takes an evening when at break of day at a riverside, I hear the jungle drums telegraphing. Now drums is taken first in the first stanza itself. That is symbolizing his own music. In other words, African, Nigerian, village music. This musical instrument or these musical instruments are usually played by a group of people, usually in the evenings when they are free of their work, when they are resting, when they have their evening recreation. Usually these villagers, tribal people, get together and sing and also play drums. This is the image brought in here at the beginning of the poem. And this sound is telegraphing. That means coming from a longer distance. And that for him is a mystic rhythm, urgent roar like blood or blood, bleeding flesh. Now here he is taking a simile, roar like bleeding flesh. That means close to his own beginning. Those people lived upon hunted meat, bleeding flesh. Usually when an animal is killed, people get together to take their share or to celebrate. It's an urgent calling for him. And thus, his youth, primal youth, as a boy, probably as a young man, and in his childhood, he visualizes such an image when he hears the jungle drums telegraphing coming from a longer distance. Also, he visualizes panther ready to pounce. Panther is a kind of a variety of tigers available in Africa and ready to pounce. Also, the leopard snarling about to leave. He's taking these images which are from the jungle and also which are also close to those hunters in his early time. Also in the last line he mentions hunters crouch with spears poised. One of the powerful weapons they use at the primal time is the spears. They killed animal by using spears. They crouch or bend low to jump with a powerful shot, of a spear. The hunters are no strangers. Probably their relatives, their forefathers are hunters. Ladies and gentlemen, though we spend our time now in the year 2024, if you just turn back and look at about 100 years back in Sri Lanka even, there were many hunters. People basically lived nearby jungles or in the jungles. They killed animals for food. They ate meat of animals they hunted from the nearby jungle. This is no secret. It's common even in Africa. Let's go to the next stanza. He continues the same story, same image. When he hears the jungle drums, then he tells what happens to him. And my blood ripples, turns torrent, topples the ears, and at once I am in my mother's lap, a suckling. At once I am walking simple paths, with no innovation, rugged passion with naked warmth of hurrying feet and groping hearts, in green leaves and wild flowers pulsing. Now he continues the same image, same mental picture that he got when he heard the jungle drums telegraphing. Then This message was so urgent, so close to him, and he tells, my blood ripples, turns torrent, the blood flowing speed of his body turns torrent, speed up, and also he mentally topples the ears, and at once I am in my mother's lap, a suckling. He goes to his early childhood. He becomes a babe, sucking milk in his mother's lap. And this suggests a beautiful village scene where a small baby is fed by a mother. Poet tell he himself is now a small, very, very small babe. And also he, at once I am walking simple path with no innovations. Probably at the time of this poem, or at the time he was writing this poem, in Africa, in Nigeria, especially lived in Niger Delta, there could have been so many innovations, development, probably man-made constructions, buildings, walls, new roads, etc., etc. However, he tells at that time he was walking on simple path with no innovation, probably jungle tracks, trees and greeneries around. And also people at that time were rugged passions, not modernized, modern passion people like today. They were rugged passion, and also their unity, naked warmth of hurrying feet, and grouping hearts in green leaves and white flowers pulsing. He visualizes the people, hurrying feet, probably again the hunters. They were not lethargic, they were active people, they were united, they were working together, and also he visualizes a background where all green and jungle flowers are blooming, and not new fashion, rugged fashion, and also a kind of background with no innovations. Let us continue to the next stanza. Then it turns to the next musical instrument as it is given in the headline or the topic, piano and drums. Now he's talking about the piano. Of course, by taking the drums, he's symbolizing African people, African culture, African way of life, the native way of life. Similarly, here he tells something about foreign that is told by taking this musical instrument, and that is piano. And he uses an adjective, wailing piano. Solo is speaking of complex ways in tear-furrowed concerto of faraway lands. Actually, piano came to Africa because of Western influence. British people. People from France also came to Africa. Whatever it is, all Western world. And this piano, a musical instrument, popular in Western part of the world. And that is very complex for local people. Even for Sri Lankans, like you and me, we still find piano is very difficult. Even though we know a little bit of Western music, we still find it difficult to understand piano music. Also difficult to study piano music. And not like drums. Characteristically, a piano can produce complex variety of sounds. In other words, complex variety of music. And he says, wailing piano, solo, but speaking of complex works in Tearford concerto of faraway lands. You get musical word like concerto, coaxing, diminuendo, counterpoint, crescendo. These are all words connected to piano music. And these things are complex to identify the sound varieties, sound changes. We find it very difficult. Not only we Asians, Africans too found it very difficult. So as a result, he tells, it is tear-furrowed concerto. Though it is a concert, a collection of music, it is a tear-furrowed concerto. You find this concert, this combination of sound is very difficult for you to pair up. That is why he used the word tear-furrowed. And later in the next stanza, you will come across another line, another word that is he ends, the music ends in a dagger point. You can't stand on a dagger point. And that is very uneasy situation. So this idea is now germinated, started here in the third stanza, tear-furrowed concerto, and that is of faraway lands, not for us or not of us. It is of other people, people of faraway lands, probably Western world. And also he says new horizons. It is something totally new. You can't simply understand. Horizons with coaxing, diminuendo, counterpoint, crescendo, all difficult description of music. You can't bear up, you can't understand. But lost in the labyrinth of its complexities. You are lost when you hear the piano music. You are lost in labyrinth of its complexities. It's so complex and you lost in it. And you can't simply understand. And he says, it ends in the middle of a phrase at a dagger point. This is what I referred earlier, not in next stanza. This stanza itself, the line appears. It ends in middle. You feel that music is over, but it's at the middle of a phrase at a dagger point. Dagger point means I think you know the meaning of a dagger. Dagger point you can't stand. You are hurt when you touch a dagger point. And for him, the Western piano music is like that. It ends in the middle of a phrase, like you're on a dagger point. We'll continue. At last, and he takes the final four lines to change once again. First, he talked about drums and closeness, simplicity, kind of closeness to his youth, young age, his culture, his social background, all that. And then he took symbolically piano to talk about foreign, faraway lands, also a music which is very difficult for you to understand. Western culture is also like that. It's very difficult for Asians like us. It's very difficult for African people. Though we have embraced many parts of Western culture, there are still things that we find it extremely, extremely difficult for us to embrace. Let's discuss these 4 lines. And I lost in the morning mist. He was talking about a daybreak in the evening, and the background was a riverside. Now he takes in the morning. Probably he was lost throughout. And I lost in the morning mist. Now in the morning, he's lost again. Lost in his thoughts of an age at a riverside. Again at a riverside. Keep wondering, he's thinking in the mystic rhythm of jungle drums and the concerto. He's talking about he is now, as a man, lost in between the two music of jungle drums and the concerto of the piano, or in other words, music of the piano. When you learn about English language, you partly learn about English culture. And as a result, you are open for English culture, and at the same time, you are born with your local African, Nigerian culture. Actually, you are lost in between the two worlds, two cultures. Symbolically, he's taking two cultures, piano symbolizing Western culture, and also drums symbolizing African culture. As a man who has a kind of understanding of these two cultures, because he learnt English, he is now lost in between the two. Now, even as Sri Lankans, Asians, when we learn English language, we basically learn British culture, American culture to a great extent. Also, sometimes we get lost in between the two cultures. At times we are lost and we find it difficult. But gradually, because of the power of Western culture, power of English language, we are more for that language and that culture. And for example, now you and I, we are wearing basically Western dress, though we are Sri Lankans. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just open your eyes and see who are wearing local dresses, national dress, you find it very difficult to find people wearing national dress. I'm just taking an example. So we have embraced Western culture to a great extent. However, if you think deeply about the uneasy parts of Western culture, we come across certain points we can't bear up. We are not at ease when we are with such people or such cultural features. We find it difficult to understand. Probably, I hope, Okara faces a similar situation. Now, he probably wrote this poem after Western influence. So he has the same problem. He's lost in both cultures, Western culture, at the same time, African culture. So he says, I lost in the morning mist of an age at a riverside. Keep wondering, he's just thinking, keep wandering in the mystic rhythm of jungle drums and concerto. Let me go back and read it for you once again before I finish. Piano and Drums by Gabriel Okara. When at daybreak of, let me begin from the beginning. When at break of day at a riverside, I hear the jungle drums telegraphing, the mystic rhythm, urgent, raw like bleeding flesh, speaking of primal youth and the beginning. I see the panther ready to pounce, the leopard snarling about to leap, and the hunters crouch with spears poised, and my blood ripples, turns torrent, topples the ears, and at once I am in my mother's lap, a suckling. At once I'm walking simple paths with no innovation, rugged passion with the naked warmth of hurrying feet and groping hearts in green leaves and bright flowers falching. Then I hear a wailing piano, solo speaking of complex ways in tear-furrowed concerto of faraway land and new horizons with coaxing diminuendo, counterpoint, crescendo, but lost in the labyrinth of its complexity. It ends in the middle of a praise at a dagger point. And I lost in the morning mist of an age at a riverside. Keep wandering in the mystic rhythm of jungle drums and concerto. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. You think about it and generate your own idea. Maybe as a Sri Lankan, as an Asian, maybe as an African, or perhaps maybe as a Western person or representative of Western world. Maybe you still have your concern, your views, your ideas about the symbolism carried throughout the poem Piano and Drums by Gabriel Okara. Thank you.